Yeah, I got another interesting question. If there is a way to know our own nature and therefore follow it, for instance, can one get in touch with our consciousness or our true self and therefore know what to do in those situations without having to intellectually reason it out? Can one distinguish between knowing arising from our true self versus that arising from our fears and insecurities, because the latter may corrupt this knowing? Very good question. Number one, when our mind is stilled to a reasonable extent through the practice of samatha, one can know for sure this is coming from conscious experiences and this is coming from our habitual pattern. So we will be able to distinguish between that. Our habitual pattern is what we have developed over a period of getting into those kind of situations. Meaning, let's take a few examples. Example one. In my case, personally, I have this fear of going to hospital and meeting doctor. Many of us might have this. So that's called as doctor phobia or hospital phobia. Now what happens? This fear creates anxiety. This has been developed over the period because of certain traumatic incident in the past or something the person has seen which has registered in the mind. So this is not the actual conscious experience. It is just a fabrication. It is not a true self. It's a fabricated one. So no matter how much I try not to react to it, the moment I go to the hospital, I will have it. Let's say I worked out on a way that this habitual pattern has been reasonably eliminated. Then one can know the true nature of the self, because to that extent there is a conscious experience, and that we call it as intuition, because the mind is not fixated. The mind is able to take a decision not based upon the previous data or how it has happened, but what really is required at that point in time. That means it has come to the present moment. In the present moment, there is no fear, there is no anxiety. So basically, the mind knows that this decision has come out of non-fearful situation or non-habitual situation. That's a better way to put it. And this has come from habitual situations or habitual pattern. So when we get on to the autopilot mode, from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep, we are 99% working out on an habitual or an autopilot mode, unless something challenging comes up that is not changed. So we are on autopilot. So when we wake up, when I see a person, I recognize that person as my wife. And then I see another person, I take him to be my son. I see another girl, I take her to my daughter. And then I see this, I see that. I keep on symbolizing it and then making that as an autoimmune or autopilot mode. No change. So it's very difficult. It becomes very difficult for me to accept that the nature of people can change, because my near and dear ones are mine. That means they will exactly do what I want them to do. And they will also feel the same, that I am going to do exactly what they intend me to do. So we have created a society, we have created certain standards, obligations, policies, procedures, process to make sure that we exactly do what the other person intends us to do. And when that is not done, it creates conflict. And that conflicting situation is not now on autopilot. So that conflicting situation requires a different kind of understanding. So the mind is now lost. It's trying to find out what to do with that situation. So it gets disturbed. So even when the mind gets disturbed, it knows nothing except for habitual pattern. And habitual pattern is being angry with something, or being upset with something, or wanting to change something, or come out of the situation for whatever reason this has happened. So basically, if I am able to understand this process and able to deal with it in a very proper way, meaning stabilize the mind, not get into distraction, look it in a very generic perspective, not getting attached to the situation because it's just a situation. And then I can have my own knowing, that self-knowing, self-revealing, if I could use that word. It just self-reveals. It knows what to do. The conscious knows what to do. I don't have to teach it what needs to be done. Habitual patterns have to be taught. And we are taught on a habitual pattern. We react habitually. We don't even think that whether this is right way or wrong way. Let's say somebody comes and tells something. We take a biased opinion out of it immediately because there is a fear of losing something. Or somebody comes and says that this has happened, that has happened. So now we have to take some judgment, and the judgment is always from habitual. So basically, since 99% of our reactions are habitual, it stems from fear. That means insecurity is a cause of it. And only 1% or even less than that is intuition based, where there is no fear. So if we were to develop this ability of intuition rather than reactive mode of habitual pattern, then we can know that this is coming from intuition and this is coming from my habitual pattern. Hope I could answer to that question, and thanks for writing on that.